Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 401st film from 2021. It's the Italian horror film, A Classic Horror Story. This one's co-directed by Roberto Di Fio and Paolo Strippoli, and it stars Matilda Lutz, Francesco Russo, Peppino Mazzotta, Merrick and Yuliia Sobol. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thanks for joining me as always on this adventure through the list of Netflix original films. If this is a film that you have not seen, please do sort of give us a pause and come back later on. I will spoil it as we go. If you're into horror, this might be for you, and sometimes with horror films, and probably in this one as we go through, there's a little bit of a twist throughout this film. So I don't want to spoil that for anyone, so if you don't know anything about this film, you're better off going into it knowing as little as possible. So give us a pause, come back later on, because I'm going to kick the show off with the Fast Flicks, where I do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one's about a group of travelers in a rideshare, but things go south when their van crashes. Interesting. All right, where's this one going to go? I'll have to say, and that's probably where the horror elements come into this film. So the title, A Classic Horror Story, very blatant in your face. This title is in English, even in Italy. So in Italy, the posters, it's A Classic Horror Story. And around the world, in Finnish, it's The Usual Horror Story. In Hungarian, it's called Ordinary Horror Story. I think probably translation lost a little bit. You don't want to think that a film is ordinary, probably a poor selling point. In Japanese and Vietnamese, it's called Classic Horror Story. And in Chinese, it's called Typical Horror Story. So the idea of this film, I guess, is that it rips off or rips on or pays homage to every single horror film you could possibly think of. There are so many references in this film, and you could probably watch it lots and lots of times and still not pick up on every shot that is emulated from another film or character or trait or anything like that. So this film, I guess, the originality in this film is that it's set around this urban legend from Italy, I guess. And apparently this is a real urban legend. So I'm going to tell you what this legend is. So it's the story of Osso, Mastrosso, and Carganosso, and it's this urban legend that's still popular in Italy, and it dates back to the 15th century when there were some brothers who were exiled from Spain because they murdered their sister's rapist. The brothers landed off the coast of Fagana near the Sicilian islands, where they created new social rules and eventually founded three major criminal organizations in Italy: the Cosa Nostra, or the Mafia, the 'Ndrangheta, and the Camorra, which is the Viva la Mafia Uccide Solo Estate. So this is the creation, I guess, of the Mafia through this horror sort of story, I guess. In Osso, so the one of the characters in this legend, in Italian it means bone. Mastrosso means master bone, and Carganosso means heel bone, and this ties into the film, obviously, when we're talking about body parts and what may happen in this film. In July of 2021, when this film came out, the New York Times just said that this film was one of the top 5 horror films to watch on streaming in July of 2021. So very interesting there. This did debut at the Taormina Film Festival on the 1st of July 2021, a very beautiful part of Italy and Sicily. I've been fortunate enough to be there as well. Not during the film festival, I think I was there just after, to be honest. The signage and stuff was still up, but yeah, beautiful place of the world. This did hit Netflix 2 weeks later on the 14th of July 2021, had a budget of about $3 million US, so not a bad little budget to play around with, and it was filmed in Foggia in Italy, as well as Rome in Italy too. So this did pick up a few nominations and awards. So it had 1 win, 5 nominations. This is across a variety of awards. So it was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the David Di Donatello Awards. It was nominated for Best Film and won Best Director at the Taormina International Film Festival, as well as being nominated for Best First Feature at the Golden Siak Awards, as well as a few others as well. Let's get into the crux of it. What are people saying about this film? What are critics and audiences saying? So on Rotten Tomatoes, this sits at 55%. That's rotten. That's on 11 reviews, so not great from the critics, but then audience even lower, 35%. That's on more than 250 ratings, so quite a few ratings on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience, so low there. IMDb, 5.7 out of 10. That's on 24,000 ratings. So a lot of ratings, a lot of eyeballs. An okay score, a little bit lower on Letterboxd at a 2.7 out of 5. And that's on 78,500 ratings. And it's actually been logged by 100,000 people. So a lot of people have actually seen this film. On Metacritic, there's no critic review on their traffic light system of red, yellow, and green. There is an audience number, which is a 5.2 out of 10 on 25 reviews. So that's yellow. That's in the middle ground of their traffic light system. What are my early thoughts? What am I thinking? It's an interesting film. I think the aim, as I've sort of touched on before, was to almost make this or take a postmodernist approach in referencing every horror film imaginable. And I guess that's obvious in the title too, as well as using all of the classic horror stereotypes or cliches or conventions that you're probably used to seeing in a film. So if that was the pitch and that was the aim of what it was trying to do, it definitely succeeds. But if this makes a compelling film, I'm not quite sure. That's where I'm sort of sitting on the edge here. But as we get through this episode, maybe I will change my mind or have some sort of brand new thoughts. But let's talk about the characters. The characters in this film, this, like I said, this follows the tropes of a horror film. So you have a bunch of people getting together, going to an isolated location, and it's literally work out who's going to get killed one by one. So our main lead is Elisa. Or Eliza, I think it's Elisa. She's the pregnant lead. She's pregnant. She's on the way to meet with her mother because she's going to have an abortion. And throughout the film, she's having second thoughts about this. And it sort of meanders throughout the film because she's pregnant. She doesn't drink, and that sort of helps her in this film a little bit. The development of these characters is very minimal, to be honest. Fabrizio is this rideshare driver who documents all of his travels with his camera on his phone. He goes to film school. He thinks he's pretty cool, and he's the one that gets all of these strangers together in this van to sort of see where it goes. And I'm trying not to spoil or give away too much about all of these characters as we go. Ricardo, he's the oldest in the group. He's a bit, everyone else seems to be fairly young. He sort of keeps to himself. Apparently, he says he's a doctor. Throughout the film, there's a reveal that he had a patient die, and he's lost his job and his wife, and he doesn't get to see his daughter. So he's on his way to, I think he says, to go live with his mother, but see his daughter as well. So this is, a journey for him in what's happening as well. The other two people on this van, they're a couple. So we've got Sophia. She's this young self-made creator of 3D printing craft and jewelry, as well as enjoying social media. She's in this relationship with this Mark guy, and one does wonder, as he does throughout the film, why she is with him. He is literally rude, boring. He's joining Sophia on this trip to travel together. I think they've been together for a while. They're on their way to a wedding. By the looks of things, they're possibly going to get married at some stage. But as I said, there's very little development in this film. There's one other character, Chiara, who's this prisoner that we see at one stage throughout the film, who has more to do with the film. But it's tough. I don't want to spoil the film too much because I think if you haven't seen this film and you're still listening, this is your chance to go and watch it and go, okay, that's why he didn't talk about that. Other than that, let's talk about the directors. So the two directors for this film, Roberto De Feo. He hasn't had any directing credits since his film in 2021, but prior to this, he had 7 credits, some videos, some shorts, a film called The Nest, which looks to be another Italian horror, so obviously working in this genre, as well as Paolo Strippoli, 11 directing credits, 8 shorts prior to this being his feature film debut, and has had 2 feature films since this film too, one called Flowing in 2022, and one called The Holy Boy in 2025, and they are both also horrors. What a surprise. All right, the scenes. What stood out? What didn't work in this film? This is tricky. All right, I'm going to spoil some things. So things that I thought were okay. There's a scene where there's like these nail-like things in a mask that are going into Mark's eyes. That was effective as a gross out. I thought that was effective. There's this big set piece of Ricardo and Sophia being tied up while Elisa and Fabrizio watch. I thought that was super effective. Well staged, put together. But again, another gross factor which worked was their eyes getting taken out. That was pretty gross. Elisa pulling the nails out of her hand, like ripping her hands out of this chair. Again, another gross factor. I think all of these things that stood out were the practical effects of the grossness too. The last one, Elisa, she shotguns a kid and then Fabrizio in the face. That was, graphic, but well done, well put together. The things that didn't work, these are more like, obviously there's very little character traits, and you expect in a horror film that you're going to get some on-the-nose dialogue, but at times there were things in this that just really annoyed me. So the start of the film, the van, they've all been picked up by Fabrizio. The van's driving up this hill into the wilderness, obviously, and there's this billboard or this sign on the side of the road, and in Italian, I think it said like milk family. It was a photo of a family drinking milk. There was cows in the background, but all their mouths and eyes were blacked out. There was no connection whatsoever to what happens in the film with that. It was just to throw like a spooky reference in there that didn't have anything to do with the film. So that annoyed me. Ricardo being a doctor. Thank goodness that they gave the characteristics and the traits of a doctor to someone in this crew. Otherwise, Mark's leg wouldn't have been looked after for the 5 minutes before he's killed. Just has to have a doctor there just to make things all good. Elisa goes into this house. So the van is dumped in the middle of the woods. There's this one house. That's it. She goes into the house. The door slams. There's some candles on the floor, and she just keeps walking. Like, just one of those dumb horror tropes. Like, get out. Surely you just back away and scream and go, "Whoa, what's going on here? Weird." Elisa then goes back into the house and just finds like an attic. There's a staircase that goes to the attic. Like, why? And why would she go up there? There's these things that just didn't make sense with what the characters were doing. So that frustrated me. There's this scene where there's this endless run through the woods by the characters after Mark's death. They just keep running and falling over and slow-mowing, and it just went on. It was pointless. The group, after they finish this big long run, they find this field with a whole bunch of abandoned cars. And I think one of the characters, I can't remember what character it was, but they said, "Oh, we aren't the first people." It's like, no shit, Sherlock. and then Ricardo and Sophia have this big argument, and he says, like, there's this argument about how Mark died, and Sophia was trying to fight him off to go and help him, and he's like, you could have done more than you did. And he says to her, "Do you think we're the Ninja Turtles?" What on earth? Anyway, the group then decide that they're better off. The sirens go off. That it's nighttime. That they're better off as a group going back into the house than being outside. Really, like, climb a tree. Seriously, could have just climbed a tree. After Elisa sees Mark and Sophia get killed, Fabrizio asks her if he can hug her. It felt so weird and gross, and a really bad way to progress the plot. And obviously, she hears his earpiece in his ear, and he has this little tantrum where he's going, "No, no, no," and calling her horrible names. Did not like that as a narrative choice. And finally, the whole Elisa escaping and walking onto the beach into the water in the final scene, and this idea of being reborn and holding her tummy and her baby and being videoed by everyone, highlighting the theme and the idea. I thought it was way too much and on the nose, and I think we'd already had the message and the idea drummed into us enough, not needing that. Anyway, let's talk. That segues quite well into the themes and the ideas in this film. And I think I'd start off, this is obviously set in Italy. A lot of Italian horror films have some religious undertones and imagery throughout. And one of the first scenes where we see Elisa in this diner, there's this portrait on the wall that she looks at, and it's I think it's Jesus with the holes in his hands, and this obviously connects to her having her hands nailed later, and they're playing a game, and one of the questions is who betrayed Jesus. So these undertones that are a part of Italian society. This is the big thing in this film is the meta commentary, I guess, on the horror genre, and all the references and the inclusion, I guess, of society's obsession with violence in the media and television and film, and how people aren't grossed out by it. And you got to tie in this again in Italy, the influence of the mafia, like the idea that they not only work with the police at times, but are able to commit crimes with no consequence and do what they want to do as well. Back into that media idea, but the idea that people are more interested in recording and documenting and sharing videos of what they think is cool rather than thinking about others or stepping into real life to assist too. And again, the importance of cinema over like Instagram videos or short form videos, and the idea of attention span and the post credit scene, I guess, the idea of online debate and negativity from people who don't actually sit and consume a full length feature film and think they can have a say and be a part of that discourse. I didn't mind that, and I think the lengths too, this all ties it all together, but the lengths that audiences can go to suspend their disbelief for entertainment too. And yeah, some interesting things which in the back end really tied it together. What did I take away from this? I think the way it was put together, the practical effects, the lighting, the visuals, the cinematography throughout, really top notch and deserve credit. As the film, it does look extremely good. So I think that's excellent. And I've got to give a little bit of credit there for that as well. The questions, the ponderings, the thoughts, the ideas. I think I was bored. The first 2/3 of this film, I think I was bored. The constant tropes that you see over and over again. Yes, they did a good job of getting them all together to make their own narrative, but there wasn't really a narrative. It was just reference. And I think the back end, I did get engaged, and I can see why some people may not like the back end. I think it's pretty ordinary because it changes the film a little bit, but it gave me something different, and I appreciated that. So I think for me, that sort of brings it up a little bit, the back end of the film. So I'm ready to bring it together. Let's wrap this up. We give the film that we cover a rating out of 5. For me, I mean, it's a decent attempt at something different. I think, as I said, the back end got it over the line a little bit more for me. But when I look back at it and think of some of the poor things, I was probably pretty bored for a majority of the film. I'm giving this a 2.5 out of 5. Brings it up a little bit for me. We're on socials. We have X, formerly known as Twitter. We've got Facebook and Instagram. Well, a question that I wanted to ask in relation to the film is did the payoff work? Did you like it? Did you think it landed? Were you happy to see who survived at the end? I'm trying not to spoil too much, but who survived at the end? Were you happy with that final scene? Do you think it worked as a film? Let us know in the comments. Other than that, we're back next week with another international film from 2021. This one's a Philippine romantic drama film called My Amanda. This one's directed by Alessandra De Rossi and stars Alessandra De Rossi and Paolo Pascal. Cool. I'm excited. Next week, rom-com, Philippines. Give it a crack. We'll see how we go. I mean, if you know the type of genre and film I like, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And if I don't like it, then maybe it'll be a good episode to listen as to why. Thanks as always for hanging out, and I will see you next week.